So chaps invited Alex, second video.
Yes.
Isn't it really?
Yeah.
And I've forgotten what the first one was all about.
So have I.
I think it's about, because obviously you are a, can I say frontline worker?
Yeah, of course.
In the NHS?
Yeah, registered mental health practitioner.
That's the one I was trying to
Senior,
remember.
so.
No, that's it. No, so well done to you. But I think it's just, the last video is more about what, was it about what you do, what you've seen and all this kind of stuff? And I was just, was that a year ago?
It was about a year ago, yeah.
And the thing what I like about you, obviously I get feedback from some of your clients as well, which still makes me laugh so much, is you like to help people, more so blokes, obviously I'm always the bloke side of it. You try to help blokes help themselves a little bit, and I think a lot of people in your space, not necessarily the NHS, but like Mind City people, I'm going to pigeonhole everyone in the same thing, I don't really know how that sounds, but it's just very few people show people how to help themselves to get them out of a situation. Yeah. Rather than just go to therapy. Actually, with a lot of blokes, that simply doesn't work. And I'm not anti-therapy. I have weekly therapy myself. It works for me. Yeah. But actually, that's more to do with the stuff I hear with MANUP. Yeah. Actually, in my personal life, I probably don't need it. I wouldn't actually need it. Am I making sense?
Yeah, of course you are, yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, no, I think, therapy is a wonderful thing. It's not for everyone. I do think in today's society, especially with the surging online content, that there's almost like this obsession with your past, what's happened to you, and trying to make sense of it. Yeah. So you can try better now moving forward. Yeah. And I think often what that seems to breed, in my opinion, is kind of this self-obsession. Yeah. Like we're just obsessing about every little thing that's gone wrong with us rather than actually asking ourselves, what can I start doing now for myself, or who can I start reaching out to get support to help me address some of the issues that are impacting me now? Yeah. So that's one thing. I mean, although I will sit there and we'll talk about the past because it's important, we need to know why we're showing up and how we're meeting our needs, or how we've learned to meet our needs, whether in a healthy way or unhealthy way. Ultimately, we need to also start changing things now. Yeah. And that could be like simple things like, what have you stopped doing that you would usually do when you feel well? Yeah. Little things like that. Or how can we start, what can we do to start addressing some of the financial issues we have, issues at work, our relationship issues, our physical health, all those sort of things, because they all intermingle.
Yeah, they do, yeah. And the one thing I see, especially more so with men, obviously, again, I tend to only deal with men and speak to men mostly, is the one thing what I see time and time again after video, the one link I see over and over again is purpose. Yeah. Or the lack of. Yeah. But I think where sometimes, my kids won't mind me saying, sometimes I think we can get too absorbed in your purpose is only being a dad. Yes. Only being a husband, only going to work. Yeah. There's more to life than that shit.
100%.
I love being a dad and that sort of thing. Did you go on there? There's my little get out clause in case the kids ever work it. But it's just like, for me, MANUP gives me a purpose. Yeah. And that, so, I don't know what. Over to you.
I agree. I think we have to be mindful that we don't tell everyone that lack of purpose is the problem, because I don't think it's as straightforward as that. But
I'd agree with you. I didn't mean that.
No, I know you didn't. No. I'm just trying to say for other people. So, because you'll see, won't you, social media, you see some coach will go, reason you're struggling with helps you lack purpose. Well, it might not. It might be. It might not be. But I do think, and this is my own perception, having struggled with my mental health, having a mum murdered when I was a kid and the fallout of that, and growing up in an abusive household and stuff like that, I kind of got sucked into the idea that I was put on this earth to have this massive purpose. And sometimes people are like, what's your purpose? What of your purpose? But I actually find in society, actually purpose is a lot simpler than that. And actually the more, we can find purpose in everything if we want to. If we can, if it relates to us and it injures us. And yes, we have big purposes. Like for me, you talk about your child. So that's amazing. For me, my daughter has given me a purpose I've never, ever thought I'd have. Beforehand I was a bit of a party boy, just like going out. And that gave me purpose. It's so fun, right? But it's also in the little things, like what you say, I'm Liverpool supporter, so I watch Liverpool win the league. It's amazing.
I did that.
Yeah. It was get purpose in going to the gym. I get purpose in getting up and making myself breakfast, getting up at the same time, showering. I find, because it all contributes to a bigger part of my well-being and who I am and how I show up every day. And that's essentially, it makes me feel good. Yeah. And I think often with the people I'm working with, It's not like they come in and go, oh, I'm struggling with my mental and emotional health, I've been through this, and they go, well, maybe we should find your purpose, and that should be, how are you going to save the world? We have to have those discussions. It literally can be like, what have you stopped doing that you would usually do when you're feeling better?
Absolutely.
Because one of the things we often have, and I see it all the time, is that, say we have a bunch of problems in our life that are affecting us, understandably so, stressors, whatever you want to call them. And then, so that's the circle in the middle of you, that's all your problems, right?
Yeah.
Around that is what you would normally do in the day-to-day life. And what tends to happen is the stuff in that big circle, like the things we usually do when we feel well, we stop doing them because we're so concerned about our problems, and eventually we're doing nothing but worrying about our problems.
Yeah.
So
you
what
get sucked into it.
so your life is just your problems. So what I will often do is say, little thing, what can you start doing that you have stopped doing?
Yeah.
And that could be like, going to feed the squirrels. It could be like someone the other day said they like to go to the pub and playing pool with their mates.
Yeah.
The transformation, little things like that can have for people can be quite profound.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes, again, going back to this idea of purpose, sometimes in modern day society, we kind of look at that and go, well, that's not good enough. Let's shame ourselves. But actually, I think it's simple stuff that we've kind of lost touch with that actually gives us purpose. Like come to the pub and have a few pints with your mate.
Yeah.
How many times do you get like some kind of someone who's new to the who's stopped drinking and they're new to it, and they're like, oh, I'm kind of, they don't necessarily say this, but I'm better than you for not drinking. And then us people who like a few pints,
No, exactly.
oh God, there's something wrong with me, I shouldn't do that. But actually, if you hang out with your mates and having a good laugh and it's not causing you a problem,
Well, that's exactly what I was doing last night. Completely unplanned. Me and my wife literally come here yesterday, had a few beers, probably a little bit too many beers, but for the first time I've not been drunk in such a long time.
Yeah.
Actually, I feel I'm a bit hazy today, but actually, do you know what? I had a really good time.
Yeah.
Of just no internet, no social media or anything like that.
Yeah.
Of just having a laugh with my wife and whatever else, a little fire pit going, and it was lovely.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is the thing, there are some of the more extreme people with when this goes live, they'll be like, you shouldn't be promoting that. I'm not promoting that.
No, you're not.
I'm just saying, actually, it was an impromptu thing where we just ended up having a real good laugh, and I generally feel really, really good. Because funny enough, on Saturday, Ben, who you just met earlier, he was asking me stuff about what was going on. I was like, mate, I'm actually having a real. My wife was working, or what, she was away, or whatever. I was like, actually, my brain's completely fucked right now. Yeah. I'm just going to play Call of Duty, and I'll reply to you in a few hours.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that one, but it's just so I was on the verge of. I needed something just to be able to switch off.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, we decided to come down here. Just had a real good laugh.
Yeah.
And whatever problems were causing me near burnout, I use that loosely, they've just gone now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all I needed was just a bit of a laugh.
Yeah. You let off some steam, didn't you?
Yeah, no,
express
exactly,
some emotion in a way, in a healthy way. It's not like you're going now going to repeat today, tomorrow, next day, and it's not like you're going, oh, I need to do that to feel a certain way. It's just, you've just had a good experience.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Social connection with people who had a good laugh, probably put the world to rights a bit, probably, just realise that actually some of the stuff you're worried about isn't as big as sometimes we feel when we're in it, and you just let that go. And the thing is, you didn't need the alcohol to do it, it was just part of it.
No, exactly.
And that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
But some people will obviously watch this and go, oh, well, you could have done that without drinking. You're like, well, yes, you could, but that's just making something into something it's not really. Because you haven't got a problem with alcohol.
No, absolutely not.
And anyone that's someone who's I follow on social media who I really admire his work, he often says that the addiction, anyway, if we're talking about addiction now, is the substance isn't the problem, it's why you're using it.
Exactly. It's a switch on.
Exactly.
And that's funny enough, because that's something what in this space, I'm on about the whole thing, is I used to do a lot of work with like addicts and homeless and whatever else, and very few people actually want to ask the question like, why do you use the drugs?
Exactly.
Why do you drink? And actually, if you hear, well, you probably hear the stories a lot more, especially when I was doing Soup Kitchen, you kind of have to go, actually, I can see why you need to switch off. Yeah. Yet again, I'm not supportive of it. It's wrong, blah, blah, you don't do drugs, kids, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Actually, sometimes I have to just sit back and go, yeah, I can see why you need to switch off, and try and work with them to
100%
unclutter, if that kind of makes sense. I think that's the problem, is it? We don't. It's like society. Yeah, sweeping statement. I don't mean the field, but just it's like we're just so focused on telling people what to do, and if they don't conform to how we think they should be doing it, it's their own problem.
Exactly.
It's their own fault. It's like the men can, all men should talk. If men talk, the world will be a better place.
Yeah.
And I've literally, I don't want to say single-handedly, I don't mean how soon, but literally, I've got trustees and teams now. I've proven that a lot of men are talking and do want to talk. What we need to be rephrasing the questions like, why won't that bloke or person talk to you?
Yeah.
People don't want to ask that question.
Or how can we listen better?
Yeah.
How can we meet men where they are, rather than expecting them to meet us where we are and what we provide? It's like, this is why I think when we talk about therapy and other things, it's like, well, and I know in the NHS, if you haven't got any money and you've got to go down the free route, essentially CBT is what's offered. But what, CBT, from my experience, it's got loads of positive things for it. People who completely dismiss it, you need to, all of us could do with a bit of CBT, not that we need to go for it, but the way we challenge our thoughts and our cognitive distortions is important. But that most of the time it isn't the CBT kind of, it's like, well, what you're thinking is the problem. When the reality is, a lot of the times it isn't your thinking, it's actually what's going on around you. And therefore we need to create spaces where we could say to people, like, if they come in and if a man, for instance, says, you know what, I'm working 70, 80 hours a week and I'm just exhausted from doing it. But if I don't do this, then I'm worried about not being able to put my kid through university, all this sort of stuff like that. Where people could just come talk about that and just offload, and we can go, we get it, or whatever. Or maybe they can find ways so they can just, outside that 78 hours of work, and come de-stress and do something. It could be just like, you know what, I haven't had time to go to watch the football. Or I haven't had time to do this with my mates. So they start doing that, and it kind of acts as a reprieve from it,
Do you find, one thing I do see with a lot of people, again, men and women actually, I think men are worse, maybe because I have more conversations, is actually people think they're busier than they really are.
Yes, I always hate the when people go, I'm not saying you say, so there's some people go, we all have the same 24 hours in a day sort of thing. I think... can
I rephrase that actually?
Go for it.
So if I'm going to there's my little get out clause. So probably think, it is, I don't know, as you know, like I love my wild camping. So what I tend to do is I go every 3 months, I go to like the travel line, train line thing, the app, look for the cheapest tickets, anywhere in 3 months, and I book it. And I really make a point of, like, even if I'm really busy, warming up to it, unless it, obviously, if it was something crazy important, then I might compromise. But today I've never felt anything more important to not go onto that trip for that 2 or 3 days. And really, so that's more of what I meant. Actually, really dedicating time to go, right, no, this is my time now. And that's it.
And that's important. And I think sometimes there's a combination of, like, it's not necessarily time, it's more about how much stress have we got going on. If you've got multiple stresses, and obviously that creates a lot of anxiety and fear within you that you have to resolve that, your brain is literally going to be distracted by them. If those stresses involve other people who depend on you and you care for, again, the guilt comes into that. I mean, a lot of people maybe do have the time to do it, but the guilt and shame of giving themselves the time to do that, especially men, is a big thing. So they go, I've seen someone recently who literally said, I will do everything for everyone else, but for me, I don't think, why should I give myself? I don't want to burden myself. I don't want to burden others, with what I'm going through. I don't think I should do that. And that's an unhealthy way to live. That's a people pleaser, isn't it?
Well, it is, the whole I don't want to burden other people is something I hear a lot. Sadly, I think it's getting worse. I do think men were nearly starting to be seen as like the bottom of the pile of everything. I don't want to turn into that us versus them, and I'm trying to be very, very careful with my words. I think we've moved into where a lot of men seem to think we're seen as the bottom of the pile. Up to a point, sometimes I do agree with it, but I think the tides have actually turned a little bit, especially because of adolescence, where there's so much evidence saying actually we need to encourage men to be more role models. So to kind of give that purpose back a little bit. Did that make sense? I think I was trying to make a point on that.
I think the narrative, isn't it, is probably for some that poor men, we're the victims here. Yes. We're all society. We're all victims of society. Unless you're in the elites, we're all getting pretty much shafted in one way or another, whether we like that or not. But we have to be mindful of, that we don't change this into us, like you say, us versus them narrative.
That's something I hate about a lot of in the male space. I think the male space is worse.
Yeah.
And I've seen some people in the male spaces go after feminist. And actually, I think some of it is more toxic than some of those feminists on TikTok.
You think about it.
So we're not actually resolving anything at all.
Yeah, and you think about it. Actually, society has benefited men more over the centuries.
Without question.
So now it's kind of swinging the other way a little bit. I don't, even though we need to stand up and go, yes, okay, just because they had it wrong, we have to go through that as well. But we need to take it. We need to take it with a piece of some. Go, actually, you know what? It's going to take it some time for people to go, oh, wait a minute. Men really are struggling when women and others have had it so hard for so long. Yeah. So I'm not saying we have to eat our shit for a little while, because we shouldn't. But in a way, I think sometimes we need to take a step back and go, wait a minute. Yes, we are struggling, and we need support, and we need to do this, and that. But that doesn't mean we need to turn women or other minorities or whatever into the problem, because they're not. It's we tend to look at each other as the problems, don't we? Well, actually, we should be looking up and saying, why isn't society, governments helping us to meet our needs? And again, we don't want to turn into victims where everything's the government's fault. But how society functions and how you are supported to live your day-to-day life and get your basic needs met matters massively. Because if you don't have a steady roof over your head, if you're struggling to pay the bills, you don't have access to good education and healthcare, or you're struggling with chronic health problems, which the NHS probably can't quite help you with because they don't know what's going on, then your basic needs, you're going to struggle to meet them. Exactly. And then that creates stress, that creates more problems for you. Yeah. And more people fall under that now, just because of the financial situation.
Exactly, yeah. Because funny enough, we've gone on a bit of a tangent, but I think, as you know, we don't talk about suicide. It's weird. We don't talk about suicide that much because we try to get in early. But even though we are the only mental health charity funding research into what basically places to live, but I've actually got a really opinion, and I'm totally and utterly talking at my arse, but I've just got a hunch. I think sooner or later, the suicide rates with men and women are going to be more 50-50. The reason being, I'm not hoping that at all. Don't get me wrong. And I've got a bit of a hunch because I'm self-employed. I do marketing for people, blah, 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 blah. And I see a lot more women leaders now. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of women leaders actually have to work a lot harder than men. The evidence proves that. Mm-hmm. And when they do well, they set the way up the top. They blew someone off and whatever else. But I think where I'm going is I'm seeing a lot more women harden. Yeah. And I don't fucking blame them up to a point. I see them harden, and I'm kind of wondering that in a few years' time, where there's more and more women as the breadwinners, which I do support. I'd love to be a house husband, mate.
I'd want it.
I'd love to. Yeah. I absolutely would love to. I think what I'm trying to say is because we're hardening a lot more females in the wrong way, they've got no one to talk to. I mean, our suicide rates going to start taking a horrible turn. And again, I've got no evidence. I'm completely talking on my arse, but I'm also concerned about that. It's
an interesting perspective, because I tell you what, there's some of that I kind of share. I mean, again, it's just my subjective opinion, but I sometimes think, like, rightly so, women need rights to do whatever they want, whether it's career, with their bodies, anything. That's their life, right? Yeah. And it's good that we've made this. These advances where women are starting to do that. Yes, like you said, I think women are having to work more than they should compared to a male equivalent in that situation. Well, do you know what?
I see a lot of men supporting women who do really, really well. Yeah. Actually, it's women slagging off other women. I see that a lot, especially in the more corporate world.
But I think the problem, I imagine, with women, where again I could see maybe something going wrong, is the sense to now be able to want to do it all. Yeah. Whereas, and that when I'm talking about, not everyone has to have kids, but if you want to have a kid, raise that kid relatively well, you need to be present. Yeah. And if you've then got the pressure, then why don't you be a girl boss and earn six figures and stuff like that? But of course, that's possible for people. But I think sometimes we and I think it's across the board, especially in today's society, where we're kind of almost telling everyone, oh, you want to get out of problems? Set up your own business and become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of mindset's kind of been pushed across all sorts of people. So now, again, when it comes back to those like little purposes that we have in life that keep us going, I think society, we now shame the person, we almost like shame people for wanting to work a 9 to 5 where their job isn't their purpose, where they're quite happy to just go home, play with their kids and maybe watch a bit of football on Netflix in the evening. And they're perfectly happy doing that.
Yeah.
We make them out to like look like that's something wrong with them for that. Yeah. When actually I think we should actually be applauding that again. Actually,
I agree with you.
You found that keeps you happy, that's great. You don't.
Well, it's funny you say that because I'm unashamedly, if that made any sense, I'm a massive supporter of that. I don't want to go down the toxic masculinity thing. I've refused to talk about it. I massively support actually. I'm not. I love being seen as a masculine bloke. But I did a podcast with somebody, some feminist thing actually, and she said to me, what was it? I'm going to miss. It was quite an old one, but it's all stuck with me. She said she would love to find a man who would look after her. She wants to raise a family. She's happy to get a part-time job. She wants a bloke who's just going to laugh after her. But now society is making her to be either a gold digger, or you're better than that.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, if that's what she wants of just the typical family, then let her do it.
And I think this is when it comes back to us as individuals. The sooner we can be okay about what we actually want, regardless of all the noise on the internet, whatever there's told, the more peace you'll have in life.
Yeah.
Like for me, especially in the recent year, the last year or so, I'm just like, I love my life. Like I'm working a 9 to 5 in the NHS. Yes, I do some private stuff and I do speaking. And yes, okay, you could ask, would I like to be travelling more and do that? But no, I don't really necessarily want that. I get to go home and spend time with my daughter, my girlfriend, and see my mates on every now and then, have a few beers with them. I watch Liverpool, play football, go to the gym.
I'll delete that as well.
I keep that on the lead, mate. And like, that makes me happy.
Yeah.
And like occasionally playing PlayStation makes me happy. Like little things like that. And I'm like, if I was to say this is what I do to look after my mental health and well-being, there'll be something to say, oh God, that's not, you're not, why aren't you meditate, why aren't you jumping in cold baths, why aren't you like really holding other men up on your arms and doing these kind of chants or whatever other stuff that people like to do, which is perfectly fine by the way, seem to promote.
Yeah.
They look down on my stuff, but actually the answers that I found that what matters to me, and that's important. And I think coming back to that lady's story, that woman's story, is that's what she wants and that's okay.
Yeah. She just wants a little family.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but society's telling her that there's everything wrong with that. And it's funny, when Faye and I got married, because she changed her surname, now somebody was like, you don't need to take his name, he doesn't own you. It's like, well, but she wanted to.
Yeah.
Exactly the same with me, like the wild camping and whatever else. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Even the MANUP racing.
Yeah.
Like Faye, when we first got married, she was just like, it's so dangerous. It did kill me once. I did have a real bad accident. But she started to see actually my mental health, because I wasn't racing, went really, really downhill. So now she's like, just realised it's safer on a track than it is back in Adelaide anyway.
Yeah, and also like it's like when you talk about that, like yes, there's usually some cost to most things we do, like to an extent. But like if we live our life in fear of what could go wrong if we're doing this activity in 10 years' time with a reason, then we're not really living.
Exactly.
You know, it's like so you might get into the racing for a while and go, actually I don't want to do that anymore. That's okay. I might do what I'm doing now and go, actually I want to do something different. That's okay. But I think that's how life is. Not that there's anything wrong with us. Sometimes we're pushed to find the answers for life now, which isn't how life works.
Yeah.
You know, something could happen to my girlfriend, for example, and my life could completely change, and I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So what do I do? Live my life in fear of that?
Exactly.
Or do I just carry on living my life, enjoying the moment as much as I can?
Yeah.
If things change, we deal with it then, knowing it's going to be a complete shit show.
Exactly.
But then your priorities change, right? And that's how life works.
Yes. Sometimes it's good just to take risks.
Yeah.
Within reason, isn't it, really? Yeah. So, and I'm a massive fan of that. And this is why we don't ever tell, with MANUP, we don't ever tell men to talk. We dropped that a long time ago because I think they are. We try and just say, well, actually, the NHS resources are a bit crap. I think they're getting better. I think maybe I'm just naive and not way too optimistic. I think it's getting better because they're more happy to socially prescribe.
Yes.
And I'm seeing that quite a lot. And it's interesting where some people will go, they just told me to go to a walking group. I was like, well, maybe that's because he knows that doctor knows that you used to love hiking, or do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a part of,
Yeah.
but to be honest, help yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
As well. I don't know what's going on with that, so I apologise. But
no, don't apologise. It's literally finding what's. I'm all right, actually. But literally, I was like, it is like finding. That's why assessment comes in. You come to see someone like me, and we talk about your life.
Yeah.
What you like doing, what you don't like, what's affecting you, what's impacted you in the past, your physical, your mental, your social, your spiritual aspects of your life. And we try and get you into doing things that you're more likely to engage in.
Yeah.
Like I say, telling all men to go to therapy when most of them probably don't, isn't going to help. It's like maybe if we can get them engaged in something meaningful and purposeful to them, whatever that is, it's fishing, football, music, having a beer, walking ferrets, stuff like that, then that's good, you know. Sometimes I think we feel like we make this looking after mental health to be this huge, massive thing. Like when we call it a healing journey and all this sort of stuff, it's like...
So that creeps me out.
Yeah.
All of that, the mindset stuff or the mindfulness, I switch off automatically. And it's funny because I was on a panel with a guy, Steve Ware, he's on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Really good. He generally is like he's done a talk for us about mindfulness. But I was on a panel for someone else with him, and he asked up the question to everyone. Was like, "Oh, what does everyone think of like mindfulness? What does it mean to you?" And the whole audience was, "Oh, it's amazing. It makes me feel peaceful inside." And it was one of those things where I didn't realise I said it loud.
Yeah.
And I went, "Fucking yuck." And I didn't realise, I don't know why I said it, it's just one of those things. And he turned to me straight away, laughed. The audience were horrified. They were so angry because I slacked off their industry by saying two words. It was like, hold on. And there he goes, well, what do you do to switch off? I was like, I bugger off mountains. I do in winter in tent. So I race a motorbike and sometimes Call of Duty. I have to find ways to just switch my brain off.
Yeah.
Even if it's for like half an hour. And he was like, that's mindfulness.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it's not. He was like, no, that is mindfulness. Yeah. And I ended up getting him to do a talk.
Yeah.
And just change the script because I think a lot of it is advertised or promoted as some woo-woo, arguably feminine.
Yeah. I agree. And I 100% agree with what you said. He said this because I think when you're mindfully engaged in an activity that matters to you and gives you meaning, that is mindfulness. Yeah. Like when you're if you're playing a computer game, you're completely absorbed by it. You're being mindful of the game there. Yeah. You know, and that's again, I agree. Sometimes we're told sit in the lotus position and sit there and try not to think. Well, you can't. Just be mindful of your thoughts. Yeah. And you're like, that's okay, like for some, but it isn't. That doesn't offer anything. Some people might be mindful just playing a game or doing some knitting or I don't know, like fishing or whatever. It's just kind of where you're being still and that's the only thing we're focused on. To me, that's what mindfulness is.
Because that was example, because that was it. When he said to me, he goes, well, when you race around motorbikes, what do you think about? I was like, nothing. Literally getting to the end as fast as I can, like nothing. And he was like, that's exactly what it is. I think maybe I'm being arrogant and just naive to it all, but I think with men, we're not showing men how to switch off more. And I don't think I think that's a society thing. I don't think that's an NHS thing at all. I really don't. But I think we need to be encouraging blokes just to switch off, as the ice machine. It just freaks me out there thinking But
that's what you rightly said. It's like when you talk about you planning your time away, you'll be intentional creating that time to have time for you. And that's what we do need to do. Unfortunately, like you say, society is busier than ever. We've got these things in our pockets now that are usually in our hands, and we're scrolling even and offering distraction with computers, TV, and we're not really carving out that time to just be with ourselves. Privacy and having time with yourself is so important, and we don't have as much as we ever used to.
Well, do you know, one of the best things I did for my mental health is turn off read reports on WhatsApp. And it's interesting, every now and again, rarely, but it's interesting where the amount of people, they're like, they've sent me a message and I've read it and I'm doing something else. And then they'll send another message. Have you read it? It's like, they need to know that I've read it. Why? And they get really upset because it's weird how people's heads work. And I've got it in my head now, I own my phone. My phone doesn't own me. And obviously, I'm sure you say as well, like, turn off all those notifications and turn off the read reports. And actually, nothing's actually really that important. If it was that important, they'll phone you.
Well, you think about it. When I was a kid, for mobile, when I was at high school, you ring your mate on the house number.
Yeah.
If they didn't answer, went about, that's it. You just leave it for that.
Yeah.
Oh, they're obviously not about today.
Yeah.
But now, like, we're ringing people 20, 30 times,
No,
and
exactly.
text you, right. You like you say, you're checking the ticks on WhatsApp and going, oh,
Yeah.
what's going on here?
Yeah.
But I think that's a really good thing you said. Like, you owe the phone doesn't owe you. And like, I'm not very good at practicing what I preach when it comes to the phone, but I do find I'm much better and calmer when my phone is in a different room to me, or I create time for that.
Well, I think my phone automatically, I think it's at 6:30 every day, automatically goes on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah.
And the only things I can bypass that is my wife and kids. And nothing else is really that important.
Yeah.
And that one of the best things I've ever done, and it works really well for me.
Yeah.
But yet again, it's just that 3-month thing with the camping stuff.
Yeah.
No compromise. I'm doing it.
So, like, it's like, I guess
It also gives me something to look forward to.
Yeah.
As well. And it's weird because I talk to Faye about it sometimes because I'm always conscious that it annoys her sometimes, but she knows, like, no, that's your thing. She was like, the sooner you go away, piss off for a couple of days, you come back a better person, because she's called me an aggie. Won't say the word a couple of times when she knows when everything's just building up. But where was it? I've forgotten where I was going with that one.
Talking about creating time for ourselves. And
Just taking the time. No, I've completely forgotten where I was going with that one.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, like, about attention, though, because I think the environment around you, society, and all these gizmos, they want to take your attention. They want you plugged in stuff.
Yeah.
So when you're coming back to the original thing about, I think you have to be so intentional about creating some
You have to. Yeah.
And like for me, I view my situation as like 4 relationships. So I've got a relationship as a family, relationship with my partner, relationship with my daughter, and then my relationship with myself.
Yeah.
Usually, I think men and women, it's right, anyone really, we're the first one to go is our relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
When we're in these environments, sometimes, but we need to be really intentional with it, even if that's just like going to the gym or something simple like that, or just giving yourself some space.
Absolutely. I've realised actually that's what I was going to say, is the build up, because I do have issues sometimes with borderline burnout, and that is my problem. Hence why I'm like. But what I've noticed is since the camping stuff, that last couple of weeks, I can feel myself willing to take on a little bit more, and test myself of what I'm capable of. I don't know whether it's a good thing or not. It's just it means that I could just be willing to take on a little bit more and push myself a little bit more, because I know in 2 weeks I'm going camping and release all of it. Does that kind of make sense?
If that's one for you.
I don't know if it's because we've been talking, I've noticed that as well. Can I just push myself a little bit harder? And I think that's something with the mental health space, what I do. I don't think it's necessarily mental health, just life space. We're not showing people actually what they're capable of anymore.
Agree. I think sometimes we've almost coddled people to think, oh, you're feeling a little bit stressed and tired. Oh, maybe you need to take a step back. Actually, life is about, sometimes you're going to have periods where you're pushing yourself to your limits and beyond. There's other times where you're going to be taking a step back. It's kind of learning. I think this thing is to know when we're pushing it too far or when we're not doing enough, and that's kind of that's life. Yeah. We just have to figure what's right for us.
Exactly.
If we're always in like sixth gear, foot to the floor, we're gonna crash.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
But if we're always just chilling, like we're parked up with the handbrake on, we're not going to do very well either. So it's like sometimes we go for it, sometimes we don't, and it's our bodies usually tell us before our heads do.
Yeah.
I always say to people, like, your mind will lie to you, but your body won't. We're all very good at creating ourselves stories in our mind that make us feel better about the situation we're in, no matter how awful it is.
Yeah.
So, but if our bodies are telling us, oh, you know, fuck.
Do you know, it's funny with that actually, because every now and again, if the stress and burning out kind of stuff, I think that word burnout is just so overused and celebrated up to a point wrongly, especially on platforms like LinkedIn. I think burnout is just looked at the wrong
flavour, isn't it?
It drives me nuts. But sure, one thing is when I realise my mental, before my brain tells me that I'm getting the crazies, is I start gagging for no reason at all. Not all the time, but when I start getting for that, that's when I realise my body's so stressed out. I have to do something before I just go mental.
And mine's similar. My one is I get ulcers in the back of my throat.
Oh, okay.
And I noticed that when I'm just, because I'm quite a social person.
Yeah.
I notice when I get home, I'm just like,
Social
I've got
butterfly.
nothing. Yeah, I've got nothing. I've got
Yeah.
nothing to give. And I realise that's when I'm like, nah, you know what? You just need. And I lose enthusiasm for
Yeah.
normal things. That's when I know I've reached my limit and I need to take a step back.
Yeah.
And there's probably signs before that I could learn. You know, usually
agree with that myself, yeah.
sometimes I feel like, you know, when you listen to a voice note on WhatsApp, you could make it to 1.5.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like that's how I'm functioning day to day.
Right, okay.
And then I'm like, okay, that's a sign I need to slow down.
Yeah.
But it's just learning to develop some awareness of what's showing you, what's coming up for you. That means you're probably like heading in the wrong direction here.
Yeah.
You can do it in short, even moderate periods,
Yeah.
and sometimes we have to. Like, you know, some people are, you know, if we just look at the worst ever situation was Auschwitz. You know,
Yeah.
they couldn't escape that. That was just a situation.
Yeah.
Fortunately, none of us are in that situation anymore.
Yeah.
But sometimes we drive ourselves where we're pushing ourselves too far, and we just need to catch it a little bit.
Yeah. No, exactly that. Yeah, it's just find yourself the best you can, isn't it? I think sometimes to do that, you won't find it on social media.
No. I posted about this last week. I actually feel happy when I'm not on social media.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
just connecting
yeah.
with the people who
Yeah.
actually matter to me,
Yeah.
rather than trying to drive some interest in what I'm doing with strangers. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these people, but it's
Yeah.
like I'm probably never going to meet them or do anything with them.
Okay.
So getting a like.
Well, do you know, there's a guy called, there's a vlogger called Leon Lush on YouTube, hilarious guy. I don't know if you remember a clip where it was him and his wife. He said maybe for equal rights, maybe when you use the toilet, you put the toilet seat up. And when I use the toilet, I'll put the seat up 50-50. You must have seen it. I'll be surprised if it went viral. It was hilarious. He set it up. The whole thing was a troll, and she walked out. And they done it just because they knew it would go viral. But anyway, but he said a video a little while ago, maybe a couple of years ago. He said the problem with social media and people using the problem with the human race now is we want to feel motivated rather than be motivated. Like all these motivational videos, and there's something that's always stuck with me actually. It's like people want to watch other people do something in their lives rather than go, I want to do that.
Yeah. And that's where it comes back to finding meaning and purpose intrinsic to us.
Yeah.
Like when you have something that you feel like you're part of or contributing or just brings you some kind of joy or whatever in life,
Yeah.
you'll naturally do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, whereas I say, social media, we're always looking for that. Our lives are lacking something.
Yeah.
So we're online looking for that, something to replace that lack.
Yeah.
When I don't, yes, you might get some inspiration, but I actually think when we come out of that world and focus on our world around us and internally, we tend to find it there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And on that bombshell, I've noticed the time when you watch.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it gives you a little bit of a window. So
cool.
that's all good.
Cool.
Is that right for you?
Yeah, lovely, mate, yeah.
I've got a massive crooked neck now.
Oh, yeah.